Hey guys, welcome to Redneck Off the Range. Today I want to talk about my new Branson 3515H. Specifically, I want to go through the process of how I went about deciding to get a Branson over any other brand. And hopefully give you guys some tips and pointers on things that you should look out for when you're in the market for buying your first tractor. So to start out with, for a long time in this barn on this piece of property, we had two really old tractors. We had a Ford 9N and we had an International Harvester Cub Lowboy. Both of them were pretty old and neither one of them were in working condition. Neither one of them had a loader. In fact, one of them didn't even have a 3-point hitch. It was basically just a really big lawnmower. And so we really didn't want to go and spend all that money and time into fixing up these old tractors to have them only be able to do half of the capabilities that we wanted them to do. So we, mainly me, set out to do a whole bunch of research on a good tractor to replace the two older tractors with that would do pretty much everything we would want it to do. And obviously we wanted something new, or at least newer. We eventually went with something brand new, but we also wanted something with a good loader and a 3-point hitch and a PTO on the rear to operate the brush hog, which we have over here. So starting out, I really didn't know a whole lot about tractors to begin with, like really didn't know anything. So all these terms that are pretty common with tractors, like, 3-point hitch, rear remotes, PTO, horsepower, PTO horsepower, all these things, I wasn't super familiar with them, and I didn't even know what a lot of them actually meant. So I did a lot of research on just the whole mechanics of a tractor and what all these different terms actually meant. And then once I got that figured out, I started to look at, what size tractor I wanted. I didn't really want something huge. This is actually probably the biggest tractor I would want, mainly because it fits in the barn nice, and anything bigger would, make it harder to move because we have a whole bunch of other pieces of equipment in here and just junk in general. But, originally, when I first started looking at different tractor models and I learned about DPF and emissions and all that, I was originally looking at a 25 horsepower tractor among all the different brands out there. And I very quickly learned that just because 25 horsepower tractor doesn't have to deal with DPF doesn't really make it that great of a tractor. Looking at PTO horsepower and how much PTO horsepower is required to operate things like a brush hog or a tiller or anything else that requires a PTO, you start to look at how much horsepower is required for those specific implements that you're looking for. You start to realize that a 25 horsepower might not cut it because it might not have enough horsepower. And so I eventually decided that 35 to 40 horsepower was really what I needed, even though I had to deal with the DPF, and this obviously has DPF, and we'll go through that in another video. But that's the size tractor I decided to look for. So then I looked at basically every brand of tractor out there with, in that size range. So there's like, 14, 15, 16 different brands of tractor out there. I probably looked at about, at least 13 of them and just kind of looked at all their specs, looked at their dealer network, looked at their price, because if I can't afford it, I'm not going to buy it. And so, going through all these things, I quickly eliminated about half of them for one reason or another, whether they just didn't have enough dealers in the area, whether they were too expensive, whether they had a lot of problems, because I joined a lot of Facebook tractor groups and watched just what kind of problems that these different brands had and these different models had, and just what a lot of people had to say. I looked at YouTube videos, and a lot of people said the same things about different types of tractors. And so I very quickly eliminated quite a few. Like I eliminated LS because they just didn't seem like they had a good track record. I'm not saying that LS is necessarily bad, just what I personally saw on the Facebook groups. And a lot of other groups said the same things, but more so on some than others, and especially on specific models. Like Yanmar seems like they're an excellent tractor, but they don't have a whole lot of dealers in the area, and from what I saw, they seemed really expensive, and I didn't want to spend that much money. I eliminated John Deere for a lot of reasons, one of them being price, but we'll go over John Deere in another video. And I eliminated Rural King because, let's face it, Rural King is just a department store or a retail store that sells tractors. They're not a dedicated tractor dealership, so I eliminated them as well. And so when it came time to actually go out and look at the physical tractors, I basically looked at 6, eventually 7 different brands. So I started off with Kubota, Massey Ferguson, Coyote, then I went to New Holland, Mahindra, Branson, obviously, and then later we looked at Bobcat because I do work at a Bobcat dealer, and there's reasons why I wasn't originally looking at a Bobcat and then why I eventually did look at Bobcat, but we'll go over that in a little bit. So I looked at all those different brands and models that I was interested in, and I made a spreadsheet of all the specs, the lifting capacity, the 3-point lifting capacity, the PTO horsepower, the horsepower, the warranties, because tractors have, different brands have different warranties. Most of them have a 2-year bumper to bumper, but some of them will have like a certain warranty on the loader, and they'll have like a different warranty for the powertrain. So Branson has a 6-year warranty on the powertrain, but some have 4, 5, some have up to 10. So that there's another thing to look at. How many dealers are in the area? I did a separate spreadsheet on how many dealers are in the area within so many miles of this location. And I very quickly eliminated Mahindra because Mahindra did not have enough PTO horsepower. They did have enough PTO horsepower, but they had a very significant drop from the engine horsepower to the PTO horsepower, more so than any of the other brands I was looking at. And to me, that just didn't cut it. So, if all the other models that I was looking at had less of a drop than Mahindra, I just very quickly threw Mahindra out of the running. I went to a Kubota dealership, and I had looked at the tractors, and I had them quote me a price for the tractor and any of the extras that I potentially wanted, and they were a little bit expensive, so I kind of dropped them out of the running as well. Not that either one of these companies have bad tractors, but I just dropped them out of the running for my personal use. We went to a Branson dealer. Now the Branson dealer, which we bought this from, is a very small mom and pop dealer. They don't have a whole lot of people working there, but they do have a fairly decent amount of tractors on their lot. The dealer itself hasn't been around for a long time, but the owners had been in the farming business and in the tractor business for a long time with different brands, and so they really had a good idea on what the tractor market was like. And the year prior, they actually sold like 140 tractors out of this small dealership. So they sell a lot of tractors, and they're very knowledgeable, and they seem to be very friendly when it comes to customer service. So we looked at them, and we got a quote, and they had a really good price. And I decided to go to Bobcat, where I work, and get a price quote on that. And originally, we were going to go with a Bobcat just because I got a really good discount with Bobcat, and they had really good price sales incentives. But the problem was it was December, and they didn't have any on their lot, and they couldn't guarantee me pricing, because if the tractor came in after December, which it most likely would have, the prices would have changed, the sales incentives would have changed, which they did. And so we decided to wait and hold off until the new year began. And when that happened, obviously the price changed, the sales incentives changed on both, on all companies, I'm sure. But they couldn't, Bobcat couldn't guarantee me a price because they didn't have one on their lot. They didn't know when it was going to come in if I ordered one. And so they couldn't guarantee me a price. Branson still had a tractor on their lot from the year prior, a 3515H, this one, still had a tractor on their lot, and they guaranteed that price on that tractor until it sold. But if I had to order one, it would cost me quite a bit more. And so I decided, you know what? We're not necessarily in the market right now to buy, but if I don't buy it now, I'm gonna regret it because somebody else is gonna buy it and they're going to get a better deal than me. And so we got the previous year's price on this tractor. We got the previous year's interest rate on the financing because we had to finance it. We didn't have to finance a lot, but we did finance a little less than half of the actual cost of the tractor, and brought it home. Well, we had it delivered, and so far it's been a good tractor. And that's essentially why we went with the Branson. Now, down the line, will it have problems? Maybe. Will I have to take it in to get repair work done and see how their customer service works with their warranty and everything else? Possibly. There is one thing that may or may not be a problem with this tractor in the two and a half hours that I've ran it so far. I'm going to experiment with it a little more, see if it's actually a problem with the tractor or if it's just user error because I'm not used to operating tractors and I don't know everything there is to know about them. But so far, I've only put a couple of hours on this tractor, just kind of doing a couple of really small jobs, and I like it so far. Got a few attachments for it. Obviously, I just got pallet forks for it. It came with a box blade. That's what we got with it, and I got a carryall. So I'm probably going to do separate videos on all the different attachments and implements that I have, try to show them off, maybe do reviews on all of them, and just kind of show off the tractor in a few videos later on down the line and give my personal opinions on it as I've owned it for a while and operated it for a while. And I'll be honest with my review, so if there's a problem with it, I'll let you know. If there's nothing wrong with it, I'll let you know that as well. So anyway, that's why me and my parents, because this is kind of a group effort here, why we all went with the Branson 3515H. And so far I think it's a good tractor, and I hope it continues to be a good tractor. So anyway, that's it for this video. Subscribe to my channel, and until next time, be safe.